This meeting is being recorded. If you are following us, you can leave messages or questions in the Facebook chat. We will try and monitor them. If there is a question asked that we have not received from the public already, we will try and ask those questions. And are we ready, Gwen?
One more second. It hasn't shown up in Facebook yet.
Okay, let's admit everyone. Shall I go ahead and do that?
Yes.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our first virtual Levy County Candidate Forum for the state offices. This is not the first Levy County Candidate Forum. It has been happening for many years now. It just happens to be the first virtual one. My name is Jyoti Parmar, and I am the director of North Central Florida Indivisible. Our mission is to work across the North Central Florida region, particularly in rural and underserved communities, to name the impact of policy on our economic and general well-being, and to demonstrate the ways in which we can impact policy to our benefit. We work in coalition and across borders, across belief systems to help engage citizens, to advocate for themselves, and to be involved in their government, in our government. We are the co-host for this forum, along with Citizens for an
Engaged Electorate.
Thank you. CEE, I always want to say CEC. And we are very excited for this opportunity. I have with me Lou Elliott Jones, who is our co-host representing CEE. Along with Lou, we have Gwen Thompson, who is our tech lead. Gwen is monitoring the Facebook chat and making sure that the Zoom is working correctly. Along with Gwen is Spencer Thompson, who is our timekeeper. Keep an eye for candidates. Please keep an eye on Spencer. Spencer will be holding up a sign which will say 20 seconds when your time is close to running out, and another one which will say 5 seconds later. But Lou is going to go over this anyway. And Lou, all yours.
Hi, welcome to our first virtual forum for Levy County. This is amazing in a rural county that we have this, and we have the opportunity for candidates to address people. I'm with the Citizens for an Engaged Electorate. We are a progressive group of individuals dedicated to building a functioning democratic republic. To that end, we inform the public about the importance of participating in the democratic process, and we offer a summary of significant issues, and we provide the tools for individuals to effect change. One way is voting. And one of our guests today, who will speak to you at the end of the state candidates, is another Jones, Tammy Jones, the supervisor of elections for Levy County. I don't know what else we can tell you except that we have candidates who are here. They are eager to answer your questions and address you, to introduce themselves to you. Jyoti?
Yes, the candidates will each have 2 minutes to introduce themselves, after which we will start our question answer session. Each question will give the candidates 2 minutes to answer. If there is a follow-up question to their answer, they will receive 30 seconds additional. And we are ready to go. We are starting with our House candidates, Barbara Byram and Joe Harding. Is Joe Harding here yet? Mr. Harding has not joined us yet. Should we do the Senate candidates first in case Mr. Harding is having some trouble getting online?
He might be. You know, a lot of Levy County is not connected, and if he's in rural Marion, that might be a problem.
let's give him the benefit of the doubt and start with the Florida Senate candidates first. Our candidates are Melina Reyna and Jason Holyfield. Melina and Jason, are you both able to hear us?
I can hear you fine, but I don't see Jason on the list. So.
I do see Jerry Lawrence.
School superintendent, yeah, he's the independent.
Mr. Lawrence, if you can hear me, the school superintendent forum is at,
I'm just observing.
okay,
But yeah, I'm just observing.
okay, no problem.
I'll try to get on Facebook and look from there, but I'm not finding it.
Oh, no problem. We hadn't quite gone live yet, but we are live now. So it appears, Byra and Melina, that you are here without your opponents. Let's start with Melina.
Oh,
Should I just go or?
You are here.
you
Okay.
have 2 minutes to introduce yourself to us.
Okay. Thank you for inviting me to be here. I am recovering from a recent surgery which is affecting my voice, so please bear with me. Even though it has been a difficult recovery, I'm still actively trying to make our state better for everyone, because Florida is such a wonderful state. I mean, where else can you watch the sun rise on one ocean and set on another in the same day? We have more natural springs than anywhere else in the world. We have a little bit of almost every kind of environment there is. And we have the sunshine laws, which incidentally makes Florida Man possible. We benefit from the sunshine laws, which makes things like police reports publicly available. That means our press get to tell us about all the odd and interesting things that happen in our state. Like the man who tried to trade an alligator for beer at a store. It is nice to be able to laugh at ourselves, but the state of our local public schools is not a laughing matter. While our universities are considered top-notch and are well-funded, our local public schools have been languishing for decades. We spent more per student in 1990 than we do now, adjusted for inflation. Teachers in Florida are retiring early, leaving the state, or leaving the profession entirely. I want to give our local public schools the funds they need to excel. We also need to fund and expand Medicaid, because nobody should die because they cannot afford health care. In the beginning of 2012, I found I had cancer, something I'm still dealing with today. If I had not had insurance, today I would be dead. I do not want that to happen to you or anyone else. I want to bring the government to you, to the people. Please vote for me, Melina Reyna, for Florida Senate District 5.
Okay. It doesn't seem as if Mr. Harding has joined us yet,
Well, we will continue.
or Mr. Holyfield has. Yes. The first question that we have for you is, are you for, involves infrastructure and toll roads. Are you for or against the 3 new toll road proposals? If you are against them, how will you actively oppose them during your term? If you are for them, how will you actively support them during your term? And this has a second part.
Okay. I am very definitively against these toll roads to nowhere. I personally view that the funds would be much better spent improving our technology infrastructure. There are a lot of places in rural Florida where these roads would be going through that would benefit from better internet access specifically. I know that there are places in Levy County that don't even have dial-up available, and I view the whole thing as a travesty. I would work on building a coalition with other members of the Senate to try to repeal the effort for building these. I'm not sure the best way to do that because it's very complicated and would involve a lot of other people, but I tend to work well with others.
Okay. Now, this second part of the question is a yes or a no. Do you think we could expand broadband access through the state without adding toll roads?
I think I just answered that. I absolutely
Yes.
believe we could. There are many ways of doing that, and the toll roads would honestly make it more difficult to do so because we'd be spending our energy, efforts, and money on the roads themselves rather than on laying the lines that are needed, figuring out where they need to go. Because the infrastructure needed to support the technology is way more than a single straight line. It's got to be a web. That's why they call it the World Wide Web, because it goes everywhere, just like, you know, power lines.
Mhm. Okay. On healthcare and the rural access and Medicaid, we have a question. It's a yes or no. Given the federal monies available, should Florida expand Medicaid?
Yeah, there's absolutely no reason why we shouldn't have. It was just a pissing contest of not wanting to do something that Democrats thought of because it was a Democrat. And that's ridiculous.
Okay. The next question is, the COVID-19 related unemployment indicates that employee-based healthcare is inadequate. Do you have a proposal for replacing it? And if yes, what is it?
It is absolutely inadequate. It has been for a long time. I do not specifically have a proposal for dealing with it because there are others that are way more educated on the subject than I do. But I would seek them out and work on supporting them in their work.
And this is a yes or no. Do you believe everyone is entitled to health care?
Absolutely.
Okay. On the environment and the energy sources and drilling, we have some questions. And perhaps I should explain. These questions are not ours, the hosts. These were submitted to the organizations, and they winnowed them out to the most pertinent subjects. So you'll know that they're not our questions exactly. On the environment, energy sources, and drilling, yes or no? Do you support the full funding of the acquisition portion of the Florida Land and Water Legacy Amendment for conservation and open space? That was a long one.
I haven't read that particular one, so I don't want to say for sure, but on the surface, it does sound like something that I would support, yes.
Okay. This is another yes or no. Should Florida continue to ban consumers from buying electricity directly or leasing solar facilities from an entity other than a utility?
I'm not sure I could say yes or no. That sounds like a very complicated, nuanced issue because you want to have regulations for the safety of everyone because electricity can get people killed if it's not set up right. So that's part of the reason for not wanting anyone other than utilities to deal with it. However, that doesn't mean that there aren't good things like the solar buy-ins and things like that. There's a lot of things that should be allowed, that some of which are not. And so it sounds to me like a more complicated problem than a simple yes or no.
Okay. Here's a yes or no. Are you in favor of offshore drilling?
No. I'd rather have wind power. It makes a lot more sense.
Okay. Under what conditions would you permit fracking, and would you request bonds for complete damage coverage to the sites before any fracking begins? You want me to ask that again?
No. In terms of Florida, absolutely no fracking at all. We are on top of limestone, which is kind of like a sponge. So anything that you do in one spot affects the entire state, all of the aquifer, and is way too potentially damaging. That might not be an issue in other states, but I'm not running for another state. I'm running for Florida. Here in Florida, absolutely not.
So I'm guessing that the next question, would you ever ban fracking? We just got the answer.
In Florida, yes, absolutely.
Okay. I have a yes or no here. Would you require Nestle to pay a fair price for water withdrawals from Florida aquifers? And fair meaning the same price residents pay for municipal water use.
I've already been on the record for speaking in favor of that in terms of Nestle at some of the meetings in this last year. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. This next section is on unions and ballot initiatives, home rule, and equality. It's a yes or no. Should cities and counties have the power to develop comprehensive plans or adopt ordinances to address local issues such as water quality protection and mining?
Absolutely. I mean, the whole point of it is that things and solutions that you need in one area are not necessarily needed in your neighbor's area. And so you need to be able to have those variances to figure out what works. And sometimes, you know, 3 different cities might have the same problem and they might tackle them in 3 different ways. And from that, we could figure out what works best and maybe then implement that on a statewide level. But if you don't have that local option in the first place, you're never going to figure that out. You're never going to have that opportunity for, you know, the best idea to really rise to the surface.
Do you believe Florida's minimum wage needs to be raised? And if so, what should it be raised to now?
I think minimum wage, whether Florida or federal, needs to be raised. It should have been 15 like a decade ago. And once again, there are people that are very specifically involved in that I would work on in terms of figuring out what's the fair price now. But 15 is way long since overdue.
Okay. This is a yes or no. Do you believe citizens have the right to propose ballot initiatives without the burdens passed or proposed in this past legislative session?
Yeah. And I've spoken out on the record in the meetings for those amendments.
Okay, this is a yes or no as well. Do you think the legislative process should be modified to give citizens more time to weigh in on proposed legislation?
Yes. But I do recognize that doing so would be difficult to achieve because of the time constraints on how long we have to actually go through the committees and session. And that would also involve a modification, a change to expand, which I'm also in favor for, partly for that very reason. I mean, we are a big state. We have more people than many countries have, and yet we have a quote-unquote part-time government, and I think that's a disservice to our state. At the same time, making those changes are going to be very difficult.
Well, now that we all know how to do a Zoom meeting, it seems we might be able to give some input to our legislature.
Yeah.
Okay, this next section is on the COVID-19 response. Do you think all Floridians should be tested for the virus? Yes or no?
Yeah. I mean, let me qualify that. I think that we should follow the recommendations and plans of the medical experts because that's why they're experts. They know way more than I do on the subject in terms of what's appropriate and how to go about it. We have limitations on how fast we can test and how fast we can process the testing. So it's not like we can just suddenly say everybody's going to get tested today. It's just not something that we could physically do. So yes, everybody should get tested. How to implement that, definitely up to the experts.
Okay, this is another yes or no. Would you require masks to be worn at all public businesses and facilities?
Again, as long as that's what the medical experts are recommending, absolutely, yes. Not doing so during a pandemic puts a lot of people's lives at risk. And I just see that as unacceptable. The Supreme Court agreed with that a century ago, and it needs to be done.
Okay. Should people be helped financially to survive this pandemic? Would you support a tax on the wealthiest to help the poorest?
Yeah, and I think that should be applied even without the pandemic itself. You know, there is supposed to be social safety nets to be able to help during either individual or statewide or nationwide emergencies. That's the purpose of social backup systems. And currently they are vastly inadequate. And it's partly because of this continuous reduction in taxing the most wealthy, which incentivizes them to just hoard their wealth rather than spend it on things that are needed.
Okay. This next part is on economic development and long-term planning. Given the revenue shortfalls, what would be your priorities for funding?
On the state level, getting rid of many of the loopholes that are used to prevent or reduce any taxes on the businesses. Honestly, there's our biggest businesses in the state that aren't government itself pay very little, if any, taxes. It's been that way for some time. And unfortunately, that's been one of the biggest causes for us having not as much money to spend on things that we need. For instance, you know, I spoke about schools. We need to better fund the schools. Nobody benefits from a better education than businesses. Businesses need to pay for that benefit. And the way to pay for that benefit is taxes. So if you don't tax them, then not only are they getting something for free, but it also causes our schools to languish with atrophy, which is what it's been doing for decades.
Okay. Florida's population is growing quickly. What can be done to plan for responsible development to accommodate this?
That's a very complicated question because there's not even just a dozen different things that can be done. It involves many different things from many different people working in a coalition. And it's really hard to say. Like, a lot of the people that are coming here for, you know, either retiring, that's something that we've been known for a long time, or the retirement state, everybody comes here to retire. Others come here because of the weather. There's so many different reasons why people come here versus other states. One of the reasons why people come to Florida instead of like Georgia or Alabama is because we actually have a lot of liberal areas such as Orlando and Miami and other places. And so people actually want to be here because of those policies that exist there but don't exist in many of the other southern states. So it's a complicated question, and there's no one answer to that.
You could have gone on. I don't think we've given Spencer anything to do on the time limits. Spencer's got to be feeling unloved. Okay, this is our last on the prepared questions. What would you change about the state's COVID-19 response?
Right now, I'd definitely, I'd work hard on you know what I'd like? I'd like the legislator to get together and have a special session to actually deal with this. That's what the legislators are supposed to do. And they're not doing it because I don't know. You know, there's many people, hard to say, but they don't want to get involved, or they just want to let DeSantis do whatever. They don't want to address this. I don't know why, but that's what I'd like to see. I'd like to see a special session for this.
All right, Spencer for the win. How important is Florida's environment to our economy?
It's incredibly important. I mean, that is one of the big reasons why a lot of people come here, is because of the environment, whether it's because it's sunny more or it has, honestly, it has a more stable temperature than in other parts of the country. I mean, Miami has the most stable temperature in the continental US, period. It's just, as I mentioned, we have a lot of springs. People come here for ecotourism. We are the, fishing capital of the world. People come here to sport fish, whether it's freshwater, saltwater. All of it involves our environment. I mean, that is the biggest reason why Disney is in Orlando, is because of our environment. People want to be here. It's a nice place to be. If the environment was better in Alabama, Disney would have gone there instead.
Okay. This is a yes or no. In fact, the next few are yes or no's. Do vouchers help or hurt public education?
Hurt. It takes money away. And there are many, many studies for years now that show that conclusively, that all it does is pay for rich people to send their kids to rich schools when they should be paying for it themselves. That's the reason why we have a public education. You do this, and if you want to and can afford something better, you're welcome to pay for it, but that's not on the public.
I'm going to get in trouble with this next question. My husband is a motorcycle rider. Do you support mufflers for airboats and motorcycles?
Airboats and motorcycles.
Yes.
To the best of my knowledge, motorcycles have mufflers already. I'm not aware of them not having or being allowed to. So I find the question a little confusing. I definitely don't know about airboats enough, but I would think that they would have it, because like what makes airboats so loud isn't so much the exhaust of the engine, it's the fan blade itself. Usually, that's my knowledge. I could be wrong, but it doesn't take much to put a muffler on. So yeah, mufflers kind of belong on engines.
Okay. This is a yes or no as well. Do you support propeller shrouds for airboat prop noise control?
I would say that that would make sense to have in anywhere that has a lot of either residents, like actually where I live. We have an area that's got water sometimes, and people bring out their boats. But there are a lot of people that live around here. So yeah, it makes sense to do that. It would make sense also for ecologically sensitive areas. I suppose it's possible that there might be some areas of the state that might not need that, but it doesn't sound like that would be a difficult thing to implement, so it shouldn't be a problem, but yeah.
This is a yes or no. Do you support the idea that we all should be bilingual in English and Spanish?
Well, I don't know about specifically saying Spanish. It is the biggest second language here in Florida, so it makes sense, but I think it should be very strongly encouraged that everyone at least try to learn at least one other language. One that might actually be just as worthy of pointing out would be sign language, because there are a lot of people that have hearing impairments that would benefit from more people knowing that particular way of communication.
Okay. Well, you can take a rest now. I think we've worked you out. My partner, Jody, you're muted.
Thank you. I'm going to throw in another question for you, Melina. Since your opponents are not here, do you want to take a minute to say why you are the better candidate?
Well, I have two opponents, only one of which said he would be here and isn't. The other one apparently never said she'd be here. I'd take that as an example by itself, why I'm the better candidate, because here I am, I'm still honestly very struggling from recovering from a very, very major surgery just a few weeks ago. And I'm still here talking and trying to do things to the best of my abilities. And what are they doing? Jason is new to me. I don't know as much about him because he only just put his name in the pot a month ago. However, my other one, has been campaigning longer than I have, and I filed back in October.
30 seconds.
I mean, I've gone all before COVID. I've gone all over the state, and I've gone back and forth from one end of the district to the other, and I would do so again if COVID wasn't preventing me from doing that. And that's just something that my opponent has never shown any inclination to even come close to attempting.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate your being here. And we have 17 people watching with us on Facebook. So we're very excited to have shared your platform with them. If your opponents do join us in time, we are more than happy to give them time as well. Our next race, we're going to proceed to the next one, which is the Florida House race with Barbara Byron and Joe Harding. And Barbara Byron is here with us and Joe isn't. So I'm going to, can you hear me, Barbara?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so you have 2 minutes to introduce yourself, and then we will follow with questions as we did with Melina. Thank you, go ahead.
My name is Barbara Byron. My brother and I attended high school together. This was more than a few years ago. I was a freshman when he was a senior. That year, he took a very public stance against the federal government, actively protesting in the city where we lived and wearing a protest symbol at school. A number of the teachers at school threatened to quit if the principal didn't reprimand my brother, but the principal refused. Some of my teachers, who had also taught my brother, started harassing me about his political activity. And then the media heaped attention on our family, and hateful letters began flooding into our mailbox. My brother received death threats, and I received threats of violence and rape, even though I was not involved. When one of the national TV programs called asking my brother for an interview, we had a family meeting. My brother wanted to do the interview, but because of the threats, my parents thought he should decline. My brother thought it was because our dad didn't agree with his stance, but Dad talked about taking responsibility for the consequences to me from my brother's protest. But when my brother pushed Dad about agreement on his stance, my dad said, "I don't have to agree with your viewpoint to agree that the Constitution guarantees your right to free speech." Those words affected me profoundly. They justified my anger at both the teachers who had harassed me and those people who had sent me threatening letters anonymously. I realized that I had rights, and I became politically active as a result. That was 50 years ago. Over those 5 decades, I've worked on many campaigns, including restoration of the Postal Service and water and land conservation. The one issue I've worked on longest is making government responsive to the people, not just to corporations and the wealthy. I'm a patriot. I believe deeply in the words of our Declaration of Independence, that we are all equally endowed with the same rights and that those rights are
I lost Barbara's sound.
Yeah, she's muted herself, I think.
Was your time up? I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
her time was up.
okay, thank you.
There you are. You're back.
Yeah, I did not mute myself.
Oh,
So shall I finish?
Yeah, go ahead. Your time is up. 10 seconds.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
Now, the sound cut out a long time ago.
Oh.
And I didn't touch the mute button. So if I'm not allowed to finish my statement, that's fine.
She said you have 10 seconds. You can finish it. You can wrap it up. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. So beyond the single vote that we cast once every 2 years, our state legislature is not operating with our consent. The session is so compressed that we cannot know what's being voted on. We need time to read and weigh in on the legislation before it's voted on. That's why I'm running for office. I'm Barbara Byram. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Sorry about the
Good.
technical difficulty there. Our first question for you is about economic development, long-term planning. Given our revenue shortfalls, what would be your priorities?
Priorities to me would be healthcare, education, the environment. These are the three things that I think are most important to the long-term development of Florida and the recovery of our economy.
And Florida's population is growing very quickly. What do you feel can be done to plan for responsible development to accommodate this expected growth?
I think that Florida needs an overall long-term development plan in terms of the physical aspects of growth. So in other words, I've been here in Florida long enough to watch the villages balloon and suck up all of the beautiful wetlands that it now covers with asphalt and little tiny postage stamp size houses for more and more people over the years. The state of Florida needs to take a good hard look at how a development like that can happen with a much smaller environmental footprint. The last figure that I saw on water usage for the villages was that the people there consume twice as much water per capita as the residents in Ocala.
Wow. Thank you for that. We have a few yes or no questions under the category of environment, energy sources, drilling. Yes or no? Though I think if you would like to speak a little bit more than yes or no, you can, given that your opponent isn't here. Do you support full funding of the acquisition portion of the Florida Land and Water Legacy Amendment for conservation and open space?
I do, and in fact, I worked on collecting signatures for the Water and Land ballot initiative. That was the initiative back in 2014 that allotted a certain portion of the document stamp to our water and land conservation here in Florida.
Do you think Florida should continue to ban consumers from buying electricity directly or leasing solar facilities from an entity other than a utility?
No, I do not believe that. Once again, another ballot initiative that I collected signatures on was the solar power for rural use here in Florida. That would have allowed a person to generate solar power and sell that power to contiguous properties around his or her own. Our utilities are no longer public utilities. They are private corporations. And it's these corporations that are pushing against our modernization of our electric grid.
The next question I have on this, in the same category is, Do you support offshore drilling?
No, not at all.
So,
I'm also against the acid matrix fracking.
okay. Under what conditions would you permit fracking? Would you request bonds?
None.
None. Thank you. Last question I'm going to ask, and then I'll hand it over to Lou. Would you require Nestle to pay a fair price for water withdrawals from Florida aquifers? Fair meaning the same price that residents pay for municipal water use.
Okay, that speaks to a bigger issue. For one thing, I am against water being bottled in plastics because only 80% of the plastics used by consumers are being recycled. All of the rest of it is being thrown in the trash and ending up in our oceans and ending up in our bodies because it's being consumed by the fish and other creatures in the water, and then we're eating them. So it's not a matter of whether I would charge Nestle the same, it's a matter of how they're bottling and selling this water. That is the biggest issue to me. But price is definitely part of the equation. And I don't believe the price that water is being sold to them for is anywhere near high enough.
Thank you, Barbara. Lou, could you take the next two categories?
Certainly, certainly. The next section is on infrastructure, internet, and toll roads. Are you for the 3 toll road proposals? And if you are against them, how will you actively oppose them during your term? And if you are for them, how will you actively work for them?
Okay, so let me get back a little bit in my history here as in terms of my political involvement throughout my years. I am a co-founder of Citizens for an Engaged Electorate. The toll roads are an issue that CEE has been working against. Despite the fact that a bill was later passed that would include $5 million to bring broadband to rural areas where these toll roads pass through. The fact is $5 million is a drop in the bucket for what's needed to bring broadband to all of the areas where the toll roads would be present. In terms of the toll roads themselves, I am against them. House District 22 is a very rural area. It brings absolutely no benefit to our district. It's too small a space to be building out amusement parks or anything where people would actually get off the toll road. And my final point about the toll roads is that they would be privately owned, not owned by the state. But the state is the one raising more than $93 billion through bonds to finance them. Toll roads, especially in the time of the coronavirus, toll roads, privately owned toll roads around the United States are failing. And those private owners are dumping them back on the state to take care of. So I am absolutely against the toll roads.
The next section is on healthcare, rural access, and Medicaid. Given the federal monies available, should Florida expand Medicaid, and why?
Florida should definitely expand Medicaid. I believe wholeheartedly that every American should have health care and that we should have a Medicare for all system in this nation. But that would have to take place on the national level. And before we can do that, we need something at the state level as a stopgap. Our nation has been relying for way too long on healthcare benefits through employment. And as we've seen with the coronavirus pandemic, so many people have lost their jobs and their health insurance that they can't seek out medical help. They have no way to pay for it.
Okay. The COVID-19 unemployment would seem to indicate that employer-based health care is inadequate. Do you have a proposal for replacing it? And if so, with what?
So once again, I do believe in Medicare for all at the national level. I believe every human being has the right to the same type of basic health care. I'm not against people purchasing additional private health care if they so desire. But once again, we have to look at the state level. This is where we need some kind of stopgap measure. Medicare expansion would cover at least those of us who are not wealthy enough to buy into another type of healthcare. But other states have shown that there is a way to get coverage for everyone and greatly reduce the costs. So I would definitely be consulting with experts on how Florida could do that, since we have more than 21 million people living here. Getting everyone covered would be cost effective.
I'm going to throw this over to my co-host.
Our next section is on unions, ballot initiatives, homeroom, and equality. My first question for you, Barbara, is should cities and counties have the power to develop comprehensive plans or adopt ordinances to address local issues such as water quality protection and mining?
Yes, I believe deeply in home rule. I am a people over profits person. A lot of the reason why home rule is being restricted from the counties is so that the state legislature can push the agenda of corporations and the wealthy. It is my firm belief that with 67 counties in our state and the vast differences from county to county, each one should be able to develop its own long-term development plan and also be able to restrict the use of certain products, especially along the coastlines in terms of the use of disposable plastics.
Do you believe Florida's minimum wage needs to be raised? And if so, what should it be raised to now?
Our minimum wage is absolutely inadequate. 2 years ago, I was working in Florida at the minimum wage of $8.25, and I can guarantee you I couldn't afford anything on that amount of money. I think the minimum should be raised immediately to $15, and that we should be looking at all of the data that explains the cost of living here in Florida and what type of minimum wage would guarantee that people can afford the necessities of life and still be able to put something into savings and have something set aside for emergencies.
Do you have a number in mind?
I do not, because I don't know the data on the cost of living in all the various areas of Florida.
Thank you. Do you believe citizens have the right to propose ballot initiatives without the burdens passed or proposed in this past legislative session?
Absolutely. I've worked on a number of ballot initiatives here in the state of Florida. This is one of the only ways really that citizens in this state are able to have passed legislation that is for the people and not pushed onto us by corporations. So ballot initiative access should be expanded again. I believe that the laws that were passed in the last couple of years restricting the ballot initiative access to citizens need to be repealed.
Do you think that the legislative process should be modified to give citizens more time to weigh in on proposed legislation?
Absolutely. we have what ends up being a 4-month legislative session here in Florida. 2 months are given over to committee work and 2 months to the actual voting of all the legislation. Last year, at the start of the committee process, there were more than 3,700 bills introduced. That's a lot of bills, and they were given only 2 months worth of committee time. Whatever came off the top was scheduled for votes, but the way in which they're scheduled is that they're placed on the calendar and the vote takes place within 24 or 48 hours. There's absolutely no way for citizens to be able to see this legislation and read it and call their representative or senator and give an opinion. Once again, I believe deeply in democracy. I don't feel that somebody should vote for me because of my personal stance on an issue, but because I'm willing to listen to my constituents. And I believe my constituents should be able to communicate with me how they feel about legislation. So absolutely, our legislative session needs to be expanded.
Thank you. The next section is about COVID-19 response. Lou, would you care to take this section over? I have to check a Facebook comment.
Okay,
Thank you.
gladly. Barbara, what would you change about the state's COVID-19 response?
I would go back to the beginning. Let me preface this by saying I'm not currently in the state of Florida. I'm at my National Park Service seasonal job, and this year I'm up in the state of Michigan. I was in Florida when COVID hit. I've only been up here about 5 or 6 weeks. My sister, we live together because she is disabled. She is at extremely high risk of dying from COVID. And when it first came around, it meant that I had to restrict an awful lot of my activities. And I had to be extremely cautious in what I brought home. The last thing I wanted was to go out somewhere and just interact with people and come home and kill my sister. So my response to COVID would be to go back to the beginning, listen to the warnings from the epidemiologists, and follow their guidelines. We waited way too long to shut down. We did not shut down long enough. We opened the wrong types of businesses once we were done with our shutdown. And currently I'm sitting here for the last 5 or 6 weeks, and I have watched the number of positives in Florida quintuple and nearly sextuple. That's an abject failure on the part of our governor. And once again, the Democratic members of our state legislature have been repeatedly asking for a special session to address the problems, and they've been rebuffed all the time.
Okay. Well, this is framed as a yes or no, but should people be helped financially to survive the pandemic? And would you support a tax on the wealthiest to help the poorest?
Okay, so I'm going to give you kind of an indirect answer to begin with, because you're addressing taxes here in Florida. Currently, we live under a regressive system of taxes, and that's called the sales and use tax. Everybody in the state of Florida pays 7% or 6%, depending on which county you live in. My belief is that Florida must move to a progressive income tax. That way, the people who earn more money are paying their fair share into our coffers. Yes, I believe the people here in Florida who have lost their jobs, who have absolutely no way of earning any money during this shutdown, should be receiving some kind of basic income. And the reason I believe that is because if we can't shop, we can't support the businesses. The businesses will shut down because they will eventually go broke. So by giving the people who don't have a lot of money to spend, it has a trickle up effect through our economy and keeps more people employed in the long run.
Okay. Now, these are a series of questions and that. Do vouchers help or hurt public education, and why?
Vouchers absolutely hurt public education, and I'm very dismayed that our most recent legislature passed another round of increased vouchers to private schools. I was just reading the law recently, and 30,000 more students will be added to that program this year. It's going to jump from 19,000 to 49,000 students this year. That's private vouchers. Public education is meant to be public. It's for everyone. And it's meant to be equal and applied equally. When the money is drained out of our public system, it reduces the value and the quality of public education for the benefit of people who are seeking a better education.
This is a yes or no. Do you support mufflers for airboats and motorcycles?
Okay, so again, that's a very odd question.
Quick, the motorcyclist is in the shower. He
Okay,
won't hear your answer.
okay. So once again, I'm up here in Michigan at Sleeping Bear Dunes National Lakeshore, and I have to deal every day, I work outdoors, I have to deal every day with groups of 12 to 25 people riding Harley Davidsons right past me. And I can tell you it's extremely loud and it hurts my ears. I am definitely in favor of reducing the noise pollution of both motorcycles and airboats.
Okay. Yes or no? Do you support propeller shrouds for airboat props as a noise control?
I cannot answer that question. I would have to look up the design of airboats and see what these things are that you're talking about. But once again, airboats can be extremely loud, and I do believe the noise pollution needs to be reduced. Studies have shown the effect of noise on people, and it does make people angry and stresses them out and causes actual physical damage to their bodies.
Okay. And the last yes or no? Do you support the idea that we should all be bilingual in English and Spanish?
That is an unexpected question. So I speak several languages other than English, but that's because when I was quite young, I was thinking about becoming an interpreter. And so I ended up studying 4 languages other than English. Being bilingual, well, for me, being able to speak Spanish as well as English has been very beneficial for me. But Spanish is not necessarily the only important language spoken in Florida. I believe that learning a second language on top of one's native English is beneficial, especially if it's taught in the way that I learned, where it's not just the words, but it's culture and how the words are used, how different words are used in different languages. That I think was the biggest benefit that I received from learning languages other than English.
Okay, we've come to the end of our prepared questions. Got to unmute.
Yes, thank you. We do have our first online question, and that is going back to the ballot initiatives. Barbara, what would you do to force the legislature to actually implement ballot initiatives as passed by citizens?
Okay, what would I do? The state legislature is comprised of 160 people. I alone would have pretty much no power on my own. I would have to look at the caucuses that would work with me and work on building coalitions to, at some point, raise a majority that would do this work for us.
Thank you for that. And that brings us to the end of our question and answer section. If there is any statement you would like to make before we move to Tammy Jones, you have 2 minutes.
Okay, I would like to make a brief statement in closing. And I know that some people out there are going to think that some of my views are very radical, and that I should be moving more to the middle of the road in order to garner more votes. But the fact of the matter is, being middle of the road did not get us where we are today. Middle of the road did not bring us the 19th Amendment giving women the right to vote 100 years ago. Middle of the road did not get us the Civil Rights Act of the 1960s. It has not won any kind of equality for lesbian, gay, queer, bi, trans people. And it certainly hasn't gotten us through the coronavirus right now. My belief in representing the people is that I would be working with 159 others. It would be to my constituents' benefit for me to work in coalition with as many people as possible and move forward and pass as much legislation as possible that benefits the people and not the corporations and wealthy. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Lou?
Well, I guess this is the part where I reintroduce Tammy. Or do we go to the Soil and Water Conservation Board because I don't see the candidates?
The Soil and Water Board candidates will be here at 7:30.
Okay, good. Well, Tammy Jones is the Supervisor of Elections in Levy County. She can tell you about getting the vote and the very important deadline that's coming up. And I guess I'll mention that she was reelected unopposed, which shows that many in our county feel that she's a fair supervisor and doing a good job. So Tammy, take it away, and I'm going to warn people you have a PowerPoint for us,
Yeah,
but not 100 slides.
right. I'm going to keep it. How much time do I have?
What do you think, 15 or 20 minutes?
As much
20.
as you would like.
Take it all.
All right. So I will try to keep it brief, but I want to take a minute to educate while I have the opportunity. First, I want to thank the citizens for Gage Electric. I miss everybody to see all the candidates. It's always great to be in person. I also want to thank the North Central Florida Indivisible for hosting this event. Thank you. You've done a great job so far and keeping everybody online. I'm getting used to Zoom myself, so it's been quite interesting. So thank you. This is great education for our citizens during these unusual times. So to begin, I'm going to share my screen. Let's see if I can do this correctly. Okay, can everybody see that?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so a little bit of voter education. I'm not sure of the audience that's present tonight, so I'm going to have some basic stuff, but also maybe some things you're not aware of. Just call me Tammy. You don't need to anything formal. I'm proud to be your supervisor of elections since 2012. I also worked in the office 18 years prior to becoming supervisor. So people tease me and say I was 10 when I started, so that's okay. But 26 years of election experience has helped me in the job and helped me become a better supervisor. Running in 2012 helped me understand how candidates feel. You know, all you candidates, what you're going through, I can empathize. I can't even imagine what you're going through trying to campaign right now. It's such a challenging time to get your name out there. I'm also a Levy County graduate. I don't know if you know, I'm a graduate of Bronson High School, class of 91. So I'm almost hitting my 30 years. So Levy County is my home. This is, all of you are very important to me, and I take great value that you've reelected me to another term. Education is very important to me. I have 3 certifications as your supervisor. I am a certified election registration administrator from Auburn University. I also am a Florida State certified supervisor of elections, and I'm also a Master Florida certified election professional from the Florida Supervisor of Elections Association. Took many, many hours of courses, thinking outside the box, trying to make sure that Levy County stays on top of everything and that we are offering all the benefits to our voters. Also, I hold the title of past president for the association. So I do have a great understanding of Florida as a whole, and not just Levy County. I'm not just into the narrow box of just one county. So Florida is very important to me, the state of Florida, voting in Florida. I just want to make a mention, you know, Florida always tends to get the highlights, and that is because we are the largest swing state. So keep that in mind. It's not always that Florida gets it wrong. We are very important. Every state's important, but as you know, Florida tends to have those great amount of electoral college votes. So to keep it basic, there's 3 ways to vote in the upcoming election and also in the general election. As you already know, we have vote by mail. We have really pushed vote by mail during this pandemic. We know it's a safe way to vote for those that are scared to get out and introduce themselves into a room of people. However, we know that some people like the in-person voting, so that will not be going away. We will be offering early voting too. That will be held August 3rd through August 15th, and election day will be August 18th. So there's just some key dates you need to remember. Vote by mail is ongoing through the Saturday before the 10 days before the election. So if you want an absentee ballot, make sure you call our office, and we'll go into more details about that shortly. So trends in Levy County, you'll see on the chart there, in 2012, election day was a big deal. And over time, of course, you see 14 and 18 are less overall because in a general election, more voters turn out for president. And unfortunately, I will say in a primary election, as some of you will be on, a primary election sadly doesn't have the turnout that a general election has. I could probably give you some ideas of why. However, I think especially now it's really hard for people to know who's on the ballot. And I think it's important for people, if they're going to vote, it's important for them to know who the people are on the ballot, or they're not going to bother voting. So it's up to the candidates to get themselves out there in some fashion. That's why, again, I'm happy that you guys have had this event, because I think it's important for the candidates to have a way to generate their ideas and let the voters know who you are. But as you can see, vote by mail this year is going to increase even more. It's kind of common sense that that would be something that happens. One thing I want to point you to is all 67 counties have websites. If you have not visited our website, it's redone. We now have .gov account, which means it's a secure government site. We go through great deals to get this site to make sure that people know not anybody can just go out and get a .gov site. Anybody can get a .com, a .org, a .biz, but to get a .gov, you know you're on a legit site if you have a .gov account. We do still have our .com working, so if you were to go to votelevy.com, it does direct you to our website. One thing you're going to see when you go onto our site is the splash page. During the pandemic, we know We wanted to make it easy for people to easily request the ballot if they wanted to. So we made it where they can go directly to the splash page. We offer the register to vote tab. Also, you can update your address. And lastly, the homepage. So if you want to see all the great things our website has to offer, the third tab is how you will get to our main site. And this is what it looks like. The very top bar has some very broad things for you, from elected officials to candidate information. However, what we feel was very important to our voters was the bigger tabs: register to vote, check my voter status, update my info, vote by mail, where do I vote, early voting, sample ballot, and also resources in Spanish. So we wanted to keep it common sense and simple. So we kept the terminology as easy as we could for the voters out there. And I just want to say, as supervisor elections, I work for you. And if there's ever a time that you think that we should be providing something on our website or pushing out information on our Facebook or Twitter, we are here to hear your ideas, because what we think is common knowledge may not be. So we depend on you, our candidates, and our voters to help us keep everybody informed. So I just want to share that with you, how important your input is into the process. So I'm just going to go over a couple tabs with you. I'm not going to go in depth in our website, but just to give you a highlight of what I think is going to be important. Of course, the most important thing, right, is registering to vote. When you click that button, it actually takes you to registertovoteflorida.gov. That is a state-run website. It's not run by my office, but this is how someone that does not want to put themselves at risk or simply can't make it to our office could easily register to vote for the first time. They could also change their name, they can change their party, they can change their address, just simply by clicking this button and going to registertovoteflorida.gov. You also can directly go to registertovoteflorida.gov. The things you will need when you do the online registration are your Florida driver's license or your Florida ID card. You will need to know your issue date that's found on one of those two cards. You will also need to know the last 4 digits of your Social Security number. So you might be thinking, well, when I register, don't I need just one or the other? There are some securities into this register online, and that's why you'll need those extra things that you wouldn't typically need on a paper application. So voter registration can be done in other ways. You can submit an application directly to our office. You can mail our office an application. You can go to driver's license when you update your address there. And you can mail the registration. Remember, books close 29 days before the election. So that means if you've just moved to Florida and you've never registered to, or you've never registered to vote, you have until Monday, this coming Monday, July 20th, to register. However, if you miss the deadline, it will not prohibit you from voting in the November election. So it's not like, you missed the deadline, you didn't vote in the primary, now you can't vote in the general. That's not true. It's a myth. You can still, there's another deadline for the next election. So I just want to make that clear. If you do happen to watch this video later and you realize it's July 23rd, you still have time to get registered for the November election. You'll see in Levy County our registration totals. That's also found on our website. Another nice feature is check my voter status. This is a way for you to look up your information. You have 3 options when you log in. You can see your information, you can see the upcoming elections, and also previous elections. So let me give you a quick highlight of those. So this is what my information looks like. It gives you the date you registered, your party affiliation, your address. You'll also see on upcoming elections when you requested or sent a ballot out to you. Everything in blue is what has been processed, and everything in gray has not been done yet. So as you can see here, this person's ballot was sent July 9th, and we have not received it yet. They can also view your sample ballot. We will also be mailing you a sample ballot. So if you're in Levy County and you're an active voter, You can expect to be receiving a sample ballot from us if you are not currently down for a vote by mail ballot. And you can also look at previous elections as well. So you can go to the past and see if we received your ballot. Why is this important? This is important for you to check your status to make sure that our office received your ballot or not. People have a big fear about their ballots. They're worried about, the office didn't receive it, the office, didn't count your ballot, your signature was in error, or you forgot to sign your certificate envelope. So these are some things that you can do on your own to check. And as always, you can always call our office to also verify that information if you're not real computer savvy and don't want to go to our website. Also, where do you vote? That's a nice feature our website offers. As you know, with COVID-19, there could be precinct changes. This is a good way to stay on top of it for election day, so you can keep track of where you go vote before you go. If you head out election day, you can always double check that. And then request your ballot. You can do it directly from our website. And then you also can call our office again, and you also can mail in a form too. So mark in your ballot. When you click on sample ballot, it will directly give you your specific sample ballot. Levy County has 3 types of ballots. I'm only showing you 2 here. And the reason is because our no party ballot is exactly the same as our Democratic ballot. The Democratic ballot, you'll see 2 races, and you'll see the Republican ballot with more. Sometimes I get emails from people and they're wondering why. As you may have just heard, 2 candidates just spoke a while ago, and they had no Democratic opposition. So even though you see state Senate and state rep on the Republican ballot, those individuals that just spoke, they will go directly to the general election. So that's why you don't see them on the Democratic ballot. The odd thing is you probably, if you're Democrat, see your Democratic ballot, and you'll see the tax collector's race. And then you see REP. So you're probably wondering, why is a Republican on my primary ballot when primaries are to narrow down the candidates for my party? Well, that is because in the tax collector race, there is nobody else running for tax collector from another party. So the good news is all voters will get to vote for the universal primary contest for tax collector, so that you get to vote for your next tax collector. You also will notice school board. School board is a nonpartisan race, so that will be on everyone's ballot. And then the Republican ballot has superintendent of schools. That confuses people because they say schools is nonpartisan, but actually the superintendent of schools race is a partisan race. And it just so happens, and you'll see in the next, when we have the county candidates talk, we have 3 candidates running for superintendent of schools. And there is another person running that is of another party. So you won't see that on this race, and that's why. So we do have some concerns when people go to vote. And I just wanted to clarify that for those of you listening, so you understood why your ballot is laid out the way it is. So I kind of went over those details with you. It's state statutes, all these things I talked to you about. Every state's different. So everything I talked to you about today is Florida elections. So how do you request a vote by mail? You can do that in person. You can request it through the mail. You can do it through telephone, fax, or email. All you need to provide is your name, address, date of birth, and if you send in a written request, we need your signature. If you want it sent to an address that's not on record, that is the one time we'll have to have your signature, so we know it's from you and not somebody else is trying to get your ballot without your approval. And that's to protect you, the voter, so no one else is getting your ballot for them. When you get your ballot, there's several pieces of items within your package. You have an inner envelope. That's what you're going to mail your ballot back in, and that's over here on the left. And you have your secrecy sleeve. Your secrecy sleeve is to protect your secrecy when you mail back your ballot. You also have instructions, and you also have some little bit more information about our social media. I voted by mail sticker. We heard from people that they wanted to vote. They wanted their sticker. Stickers are very important these days. People should show their pride in voting. So we provide that now in your package. So what you're going to do is put your ballot in the secrecy sleeve, put it in the envelope, and make sure that you sign the envelope. So here you'll see that you want to sign this and date it. This other information is helpful. It is optional, but it lets us help to notify you if your signature doesn't match or if you forget to sign the certificate. You have until 2 days after the election to make sure that you cure your ballot. So the good news is you have time to fix your certificate envelope if you forgot something. We will notify you as soon as possible. So the more information you give us, the more likely we are to get a hold of you. How do you return your ballot? You're going to return it through the mail, or we have a drop box at our office. This year, for the next 2 elections, we will be providing postage paid return envelope. So there's no cost to you. You don't have to run to the post office to grab a stamp. You can easily drop this in your mailbox and it will be returned quickly. I will say the post office is working hard to deliver your ballot. We mailed ballots out July 9th, and we were getting ballots back, people bringing their ballots back the next day. And Monday, we had a whole tray of ballots returned to us. So I know it's working. I know people are getting their ballots. I'm really proud that our post office has worked and coordinated with us to ensure that voters during this pandemic have the opportunity to vote. But don't forget, make sure you sign your ballot, because that is a very important piece of information. And also keep your signature up to date. If your signature has changed, I know a lot of people, you would think it's older people's signatures that change, but let me just mention to you that actually it could be younger people. My son was in college, and a couple years ago when he voted, his signature changed dramatically. So even young people, from all that writing I guess you do in college, your signature changes. So you want to make sure you keep your signature up to date. Lastly, and what most importantly, what can you do for Levy County? We need poll workers. You know, we have enough. We're good, but there's never a time we will turn you away. If you want to become a poll worker, and we do pay, so that's an advantage right now during when people are unemployed. So we're looking for poll workers always. Contact us if you're interested. We're looking for you. Take a stand. Help these people that are running for office. If you support somebody, get out there, hold a sign for them, you know, call your friends, you know, you're the person out there that can make a difference for that person running for office. Especially during these times, they need all the help they can get. I give kudos to all people that run for office. It's not easy. You learn a lot about, you know, democracy, you know, that side of it. But I want to also say, if you're voting, do your research, listen to forums, study who's who and what they stand for. It's your job. Our office is not going to do that research for you. If you come to me asking me who someone is, I'm not going to tell you, because it's your job. And my job is to be nonpartisan. It's your job to research amendments and research the candidates that are on your ballot. And also, we ask that you don't spread misinformation. We ask that you come straight to the source, and that is votelevy.gov, or call the elections office, visit our Facebook or Twitter, and we are your source for information. So I'll be happy to answer any questions. I may have caused questions to arise during this presentation, and hopefully I didn't overshare.
Not at all, Tammy. You did an excellent job. You made it very clear for everyone on how they can vote, how they can register, and how they can get a mail ballot. And I just wanted you to know, looking beyond August, I will vote November 3rd. And I'm going to bring Scooter by to register.
We'll get your picture with him.
Yeah.
Thank you
Okay.
so much, Tammy. I do have a few questions. Everything was very clear. I followed along. I took some notes. And I do have a couple of questions, if you could just confirm that I've understood correctly. In order to vote in the primary elections for whichever party they are registered in, they have until Monday, end of day Monday till 5 p.m. Monday, to go online and update the registration, or to actually register for the first time?
Well, that's a good question because I didn't clarify that. So we are open till 4:30 if you want to physically come to the office. However, if you do online voter registration, the good news is you have till 11:59. So even though our office closes at some point, you can go online to register. Also, if you mail your application, as long as it's postmarked by that day, so we may not receive it for 2 or 3 days, that's okay. If we can't read the postmark, the law says that as long as it's within 5 days, we would count it as a book closing date.
Okay, that's great to know. For people who have voted in prior elections, are they safe to assume that they are still registered, or do they need to go online and check to make sure they're registered?
It's always good to check. Florida has list maintenance, but it does take a very long time to remove someone from the role. So I could go into great detail about list maintenance, but I know you don't want me to do that. I would say, always be on the safe side and check your status. Obviously, if you just voted in March, I don't see no reason why you should worry, or even in 2018. If you've been gone for 10 years and you just moved back here, if we mailed you a piece of mail, there's a possibility that through that 10 years, the mail came back and you went through the list maintenance process and your name got removed. You can re-register, but like I said, check your status or call us, and we'll be happy to. We can even move you in from another county. So let me clarify registration as well. If you're, let's say, in Alachua County and you just moved to Levy, you can, as long as you're a registered voter in the state of Florida, we can move your registration even after the book's closed. So you're not locked into your county. You definitely want to vote where you now live. So that's a little tricky because Florida has state registration now. So a lot of people don't realize. They think, okay, well, I'm going to drive all the way to Tampa, even though now I live in Levy County. You don't want to do that. We can easily pull your information from the other county and get you in the right district.
Okay. Could you talk a little bit about the common mistakes that people make when they are sending in their vote by mail? Like, I know about the signatures, and I heard about this one couple which I guess that problem has been solved because it's prepaid, but there was one couple that sent both their ballots into one envelope in order to save the stamp, and that didn't work. So if you could just touch a little bit on those.
Okay. We do have husband and wives that sometimes they mix their envelopes up. Our canvassing board does meet. We discuss the things that could happen, and we predetermine how we're going to handle those things because we want to be fair and upfront and make sure that we've discussed those items beforehand. In that case, just so you know, as long as it's from the same household, the signature does match. If you happen to sign the wrong envelope, we would still count those ballots. Some other common mistakes would be trying to think. The signature is a big one, like you said. Thinking that you can send your ballot back through the mail the day before the election. So many people think the mail will get to us the next day, and it doesn't. The mail takes about 3 days. So make sure when you mail your ballot back, I would say give it a week. So if the election is August 18th on a Tuesday, at least mail your ballot back no later than the Tuesday before. Also, we have drop boxes. So for any people that fear to send their signature on the outside, or the fact that you're worried we won't get it in time, if you come to our office and drop it in the box, that way you have no worries. Trying to think what other mistakes happen.
I think I know of one where people may want to bring their mail-in ballot to their precinct on the day of the election.
Yes. They can bring their ballot to the precinct, but the poll worker will have to void that and give them an official precinct ballot. However, let's say you brought your husband's ballot to the precinct and wanted to drop it off, you would have to bring it to the main office because ballots have to be received by 7 p.m. election night. So the poll workers do not get back to us till 8:39. So therefore that ballot would not count. So good point, Ms. Lou. A lot of people don't realize that.
Okay. Oh, and if you spoil your ballot,
At the
what about
precinct,
people who spoiled their mail-in ballot? Can they get another?
there's several things you can do. We can send you another ballot if there's enough time, or if you made a mistake, just make a very clear indication on what you meant. The canvassing board will review your ballot. We can duplicate ballots in front of the public. We have public meetings that any of this would be done. We would never do this behind closed doors. So let's say it's 5 days before the election, you got to get that ballot mailed in. You don't have time for us to mail you a new ballot. Just by the person you really want, put an arrow directly to that person. Say, I want this person. I don't want this person. As long as you make a clear indication, we will accept your ballot. We will be able to correct that. So call us if you're not sure what to do. Call us and we'll try to help guide you.
Good. Thank you.
One more question. I've been taking a lot of notes. Under what conditions would the SOE's office contact a voter to cure a problem ballot?
If the signature doesn't match or they forgot to sign their certificate envelope,
Okay.
when we check it in, we would contact them either that day or the very next day as soon as possible. We would either, preferably we call you. If we can't get a hold of you through call, we will email you. We will mail you a letter automatically, and we will even text message you. So any of those methods, I prefer to talk to somebody so I physically know I've talked to you. We keep a log of that, how we've tried contacting people. So the more information you provide on your envelope, the better you'll know that your ballot was counted or not too.
Great.
Have a good night. Huh? You can go out this way.
So I have a question about the poll workers. I know in Alachua County, the poll workers work a 12-hour shift. And I was wondering if there have been any accommodations made for the pandemic and 12-hour shifts in a closed space. Has Levy County made any accommodations for that, or?
Well, because it's so hard to get poll workers, it's really hard for us to split shifts. So we do ask our poll workers to work the entire day. I'm not opposed to it. I really haven't had maybe just a handful of people ask for that. We are requiring our poll workers to wear a mask. We are providing safety CDC measures. We are, going to have hand sanitizer. We have an extra poll worker in each polling place to clean. Every pen will be sanitized after each use. The sleeves, the voting area, the tables will be wiped down. The doorknobs will be sprayed with Lysol. So we are trying our best to make sure you come into a very clean environment that you will feel safe.
Great, thank you so much. I really appreciate the time you've taken also to answer my questions. Does
Sure.
anybody else have any questions?
We have one more question. Where is the drop box for mail-in ballots if you want to take it directly to a drop box?
Okay, it's going to be at 421 South Court Street. That's at the elections office in Bronson. It's 24 hours a day, so if you work, and you just can't get here when we close, that drop box is monitored by camera, so you can come anytime between now and 7 p.m. election night to drop your ballot off. During early voting, it's at the office as well, but we do have a drop box outside on the side of the office. That way people don't have to come inside, so we're trying to think of things to prevent people from having to come indoors.
Wonderful, thank you so much. We have a comment in Facebook that I thought we should share with you. Somebody said, our poll workers tell me they love working with you, Tammy. You are clear and fair. And I thought you should know.
Thank you.
I have a fan out there, multiple fans apparently. Thank you so much for coming in and sharing this information with us.
Thank you for
Any
having me.
closing statement?
I would just say get out and vote. Everybody's passionate. You show your passion through the polls.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Remember, lots of people died for your right to vote.
That's right.
And we are closing out.